On today's episode, we welcome Andrew Laliberté, CEO of Andyman Tech Solution. Andrew, welcome.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here.
There you go. So, walk us where you're from, where you come from, and your experience with IT and why you started that business into cybersecurity.
All right. So basic background, I got my start into technology really when I joined the reserves in 2003. Joined up at 763 Comm Regiment at the time, which is now 33 SIGs Reg. Um, it went from being an interesting summer job at 18 to by about 2007. Uh, I joined a group called DLSSBM. I had a roommate at the time. We were both in reserves. Well, there's a few of us that were sharing a place. And he got this job doing computer stuff. I was like, Anton, you don't know anything about computers. What's going on? He's like, I know, it's great. You should try it. So I showed up and got my very small resume at that point together at like, gosh, 22, and my dress uniform, and showed up to the Louis Saint Laurent building over in the Gatineau side of Ottawa, and sat down, and they asked a couple of very basic questions about technology, and they got to the point like, well, so what's your experience with computers and whatnot? I was like, well, I build my own gaming PCs right now, and I've been getting to others, and they're like, oh, okay, cool, cool, cool. And basically, the interview kind of ended right there. It was just like, all right, and you're gonna go down the hall. We're gonna look at onboarding you and go.
Hmm.
Because they were willing to grab anyone who had clearance and any sort of technical aptitude at that point to start doing things. Because what had happened is they'd realized if your posting cycle for the Reg Force guys is every 2.5, 3 years ish, um,
If not
and the
more, yeah.
learning curve of doing, knowing nothing but being switched on, you'll take notes, to being able to send out the door and go fix all the technology somewhere based on their stack, that was about 3 years of learning curve.
Hmm.
And so they would train someone up, and then they would get posted before they got any of that value out of them to go do the work. So they
Hmm.
had switched over to using the reserves as people who they could keep longer, because then you could stay 3, 5, 7, 9 years. There's guys that have been there for a long time.
Yeah.
Um, and so I started doing that full time, and that basically was the in-service support team for the command and control system of record, for all
Hmm.
the fancy that for all the fancy title. It wasn't very good, but is what we had, and it's what we use, the land command support system overseas, Battleview, and
Hmm.
uh, it was what it was, and our job was to keep it alive and humming
Yeah.
and working, which was difficult when we have two different navies, a few different air forces, at least three different armies, right, between Western, Central, and Eastern,
Yeah.
and everyone would do stuff differently. But the system was only designed one way. So one group would go over, that road to high readiness, they get ready and they show up and they do a bunch of stuff to the system. And the
Hmm.
next group would show up and they go through their RIP. I forget what RIP stands for, but they'd have changed everything about the system to suit their needs. And that's fine. Except the next people falling onto it had no idea what they'd done. Nothing had been documented. Everything had just been kind of higgledy-piggledy, to
Yeah.
suit their needs at the time. Um, And so we'd get called out to these technical assistance visits, or TAVs, and we'd have to go out for months at a time. And you were there, so we'd fly out to Kandahar, Kabul, and you were there as long as it took to get everything done and make it working again and make sure the commander was happy and nothing was going to blow up that shouldn't blow up.
Hmm.
So we did that until about 2012. I went over twice in uniform, as a soldier, and then the third time in 2012, I went back as a uh, civilian contractor for Thales Defense at the time, because they at that point had the contract for LCSS.
Hmm.
That contract kept switching back and forth between GD and Thales, and that became a problem down the road. But at the time, everyone thought that was great. So from 2012, like that civilian deployment was essentially my audition for Thales Canada. And I came back and I worked for them as a embedded field service representative for their systems till about 2014. Unfortunately, 2014, we were a couple years past the mission really closing out, and the money had turned off, and everyone's attention had gone away.
Hmm.
And uh, two majors, well, one was an ex-major working for Thales, now is a civilian program manager, and the other major, who didn't like each other from their time back in the military, got into a fight about stuff, and so they blew up the $1 billion support contract because they didn't like each other.
Mm.
And then that was just allowed to happen. So overnight, essentially within like a week, the entire corporate knowledge base and support system for the command and control system blew up.
Hmm.
And just suddenly everyone on the street was looking for new jobs and finding somewhere to be. And that corporate knowledge evaporated.
Mm.
Yourself, you said you got in closer to what, 2016, 2017?
2015, yeah.
2015, right? So just after that, so by the time you roll in, the support structure that had been there, making sure that as people cycled through, they were getting the up-to-date knowledge and hands-on experience and OJT,
Hmm.
all that had kind of gone, right? It just blown up. Some places were better than others, but now there was no central control of it.
Yeah.
Uh, from about 2014 to 2023, I basically floated around, still in the defense sector, trying to do good work somewhere. I worked for Dimey and CJOC and
Mm.
DPDMS and a few other places, just trying to find a project that was going to do something of value,
Mm.
actually make change. One of the things I was happiest about working on um, was we built an ISR system, like a backbone network, so that you
Mm.
could get beyond visual line of sight video off the Auroras, and they could go through the satellite and come back down, or if they're within range, you can go to a ground station and then our analysts could do the PED stuff, processing, exploitation, dissemination, make up an intelligence product using all those feeds, and then send it off if someone needed it.
Mm.
And it worked really well. And I was very proud of the fact we in like 9 months we did more work, like more actual keyboards, like hands-on keyboards work, and got things functional in 9 months than the Air Force had managed in 10 goddamn years. Like it wasn't that hard. We just had to sit down and do the work.
Yeah.
But that's not how Ottawa works. So
No.
unfortunately, that was our sin. We showed so much value because it started working. It got a bunch of buzz, and people realized, oh, it's a shiny thing, and so everyone started to fight about it.
Mm.
So we got like tools down. Oh, the project's frozen. We need to figure out who's going to own this thing, and that was more important than it getting like past the capability demonstrator into an actual fielded product.
Yeah.
That was more important to them. They got who got to get a feather in their hat to own it. And so the whole thing just blew up because you can't have a team. Oh, and we had everybody. We had the pedsters. We had all the guys with like the ISAF Afghanistan experience, with like
Mm.
synthetic radar and like all the fancy shit and how to work with ISAF and the Americans. We
Nice.
had the dream team,
Hmm.
and they wasted it. Right.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
that was a real morale blow for me. And I tried a couple other projects after that, but essentially I just kept running into worse situations. I got my clearance upgraded and tried to go to the squirreliest place I could find because, like, surely someone must be doing real grown-up work somewhere.
Hmm.
And it turns out inside D&D, no, they weren't. The more sensitive a network was, the longer it had been uh, since a grown-up had been in charge or around it, or anyone who knew what a network should look like or what actual system support should look like.
Mm.
And so they had no documentation. They had no diagrams. They did not know what they were doing, but they knew it was on fire and everyone was mad at them and they wanted it to stop. But they weren't willing to do anything to make it better
Yeah.
because that would involve a bunch of styles of work at a pace that
Hmm.
Ottawa can't handle. They are not prepared to do that work.
Mm.
Um, and the last couple of years of everyone's freaking out in the news is testament to that, right? Like just like this is why we have these problems with our allies where we can't function and we can't do stuff and we don't have capabilities, right? Anyway, with all the pressure now and realizing that the Americans aren't going to have our back constantly for everything, we are hopefully in a better position now where we are going to step up, start doing our own work, make sure we have our own capabilities. Everyone's talking about sovereign capabilities.
Hmm.
That's what that means. So I am hopeful that it will change.
Mm.
But by 2023, I stepped away because I was disgusted with how little they were doing and how little everyone cared. The prevailing attitude was they just needed to survive so they get past that posting, so they could retire, so
Yeah.
they could go off somewhere. So this was just not their problem.
Hmm.
And that's no way to keep your country safe.
Yeah.
So 2023, stepped away and looked around like, okay, what the hell am I going to do now? And I found the CMMC program. Uh, Previously, in previous years during that contracting phase, when working from inside D&D and they wanted to work on a contract with a contractor, and the contractor wanted to do work in their office, there was no standard way to do that. There was no one thing to point at and say, these are the rules for how to do that work in a contractor's system. But CMMC and the corresponding Canadian system, which we'll talk about, CPCSC, basically says, hey, the standard, like there's a couple tiers, but the standard to do, using controlled unclassified information or sensitive information from the government is to do the NIST SP 800-171 control set. And essentially just means like NIST, the National Institute Standards and Technology from the States, right? Ron Ross of much fame, great guy, wrote out a really great document, well, him and others. And it has 110 controls and some assessment objectives, and we can get into that later, but it is the thing to do. It's the standards. Like, hey, scope out your system, do these things, and then you will have protected the confidentiality of this government data that's been given to you. And that's enough to start. And I looked at it, I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is the thing I've been looking for. No one could tell me what the standard should be. And now we've got one. But, it was an American program. So I didn't rush into doing assessments for it. I went and got certified as a practitioner, which basically means I understand the programmatics. I know what you're trying to achieve, and I can help consult with the client to get them up to standard. And so I've been focused on that for the last couple of years because Canada has absolutely said, oh, hey, we have to be able to stay compatible with the Americans, and our defense industrial bases are very intertwined. So we're going to need essentially the same thing. So we made our program, CPCSC, and it's a carbon copy of the American program, or it's meant to be. So far, all we've released is CSC and the CCCS, the Cyber Center, which they're kind of like public, open-facing side of that house, released ITSP 10171, and that's a carbon copy of the NIST SP 800-171 Revision 3, which causes some issues because Americans are still using Revision 2, but that'll sort out in a few years. Yeah, that focus on GRC has been what I've been up to lately, is trying to see how I can turn that into something that benefits the Canadian industrial base.
And were you with the reserve until 2023?
No, so I took the uniform off, like on ground in 2012 as I transitioned over contracting full time for Talos.
Okay.
But I'd stayed with reserves for a bit. Officially it stopped around 2015. What had happened was Ottawa is a weird, incestuous little place, and the CO, Chief Comm Op, and RSM of the Reserve Signal Unit were also highly paid contractors at GD and Thales and other places. And they were basically just running a show where they would do stuff with the reserve unit for all this gear, and then they would do a bunch of business for that stuff on their day jobs, and then create work for themselves on the reserve unit. And they loved it. They thought it was great. And they tried to rope a couple of us into it because we'd stepped away now from the full-time uniform work, being the SMEs for the system. And they're like, oh, great, we're going to get you to do all these things.
Yeah.
And we looked at it and was like, this is just a giant conflict of interest. You want us to just create work for ourselves.
Yeah.
Also, they just had a really dumb plan. They wanted to launch a training and like fielding a system 10 times larger than the Reg Force had ever used during Afghanistan.
Nice.
But they wanted to do it off like 2 guys' backs.
Okay.
So
military style.
Military style. Yeah. Made no damn sense. They had a lot of goals. They had no plan, but they knew they wanted us to do everything for them. And we're like, no. So we wrote our memos, like, sorry guys, we're releasing, we're out. Because it was dirty, and it was very obviously a problem. And one of the things I've often been frustrated with in Ottawa is that, yeah, the morals and ethics aren't there half the time. They'll talk a good game, but when it comes down to, well, oh, if I stick to my morals, I wouldn't make money, they throw the morals out the window. And that was unacceptable. So.
And how did you feel like working with Ottawa as like it's always big ranks, higher decision makers? Because I worked in Petawawa, so it's like Petawawa, it's like mostly corporals, master corporals, and then whenever you have a big rank, that's like a commander of a unit, and it's like there's like 8 maximum, and then 1 of base. But when you're in Ottawa, it's all the opposite. It's like you have 20 big guys that actually take all those decisions. So how was that different?
It was weird because again, so we'd have to float between Ottawa to all the other bases. We'd show up and as a
Mm.
corporal, my best buddy, fire team partner was Master Jack, and by our powers combined, we were the technical SMEs. And so
Yeah,
we got to kind of exist a little outside the chain of command because yeah, we're junior NCMs,
yeah,
but we know how all the magic works. We're wizards,
yeah.
and no one else really did. So we'd show up and we learned how to use like kind of lead from the bottom, that whole like, hey, I'm gonna go talk to you until you think that the obvious thing you should do is your idea and you should do it now.
Mm,
Like it's people to do their own jobs. But in
yeah,
Ottawa, yeah, the working rank is like major, right?
yeah,
So a
for sure.
major in Ottawa is
Yeah,
is a corporal, right? They
yeah.
are they are a paper pushing peon. They're not making decisions of effect. They're not making good effect.
Yeah.
They exist somewhere and they keep expanding that officer base because they need more resources and they've declared that those resources have to be at certain ranks, so they just keep expanding the officer base
Hmm.
even if they don't do anything.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's fair to them, and I don't think it's been very fair to the CAF in general because it really it makes the organization top heavy,
Hmm.
and doesn't produce the effect we're asking for.
Hmm.
And yeah, but stepping out to a base anywhere, world of difference. A major was a unit commander, and
Yeah.
their fucking word was listened to, and you were going to go do stuff because they said so.
Hmm.
And watching the people that had only known that environment show up to Ottawa the first time was watching culture shock,
Yeah.
right? Oh, I'm a fucking major. I'm gonna do a thing. And some sergeant's like, dude, get in line. And watch them just lose their noodle.
Yeah.
But then someone would have to come by and be like, hey, dude, calm down.
Yeah.
And take them outside and explain that just because you want a thing and you're a major doesn't mean anything in Ottawa.
Hmm.
You're just not going to get it.
Hmm.
Tough. Go find us another way to get your job done.
Hmm.
And that was a real mindset shift for some
Yeah.
people. Some people couldn't make it. Some people would turn in,
Hmm.
essentially, they get ostracized by the rest of the group because they'd show up. They couldn't adjust their field mentality
Yeah.
to the Ottawa, we're not getting anything done and we like it that way mentality. And I
Hmm.
don't blame them. Ottawa has a terrible internal mentality often.
Hmm.
Um, but that adaptability to understand your environment and
Hmm.
adapt to it and then work within the rules you find yourself playing, like the game you're playing,
Yeah.
is one of the key things that all our leadership training tried to teach us, right?
Yeah.
To be adaptable, to understand the environment you're in, to work with it and not
Hmm.
just rail against it uselessly. So at some level, that was a failure on their part for not being able to get to grips with the reality they found themselves in.
Yeah.
Um,
I
a
understand.
lot of people left, right? A lot of people got there, and no fault on them because, like, yeah, since like 2010, 2012, the money turned off, the will to do anything turned off, and we have sat through this 12 to
Complete.
15-year period of doing sweet fuck all.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I could even have like sergeant and master corporal who have been in the military for like 9 years and didn't have any deployments, and that's Reg Force. That's not even
Yeah.
reserve. So it's like,
There was nothing happening, and
yeah,
the people that had been through the Afghan period wanted it that way half the time because they're mentally exhausted. They'd
yeah.
learned themselves over and over. Their will to do anything had just gone because
Hmm.
every time they tried to do something, they'd been beaten down
Yeah.
because it was never important enough. It was never it was a bunch of old leadership who had panicked during Afghanistan and had just beasted all their people to get something done now because bodies were dropping.
Hmm.
And then when the pressure finally let up, they just collapsed. The organization just kind of fell in on itself, right? Like a house at the end of a fire.
Yeah. Hmm.
I can't blame them. You know,
Have you got the chance to work with any CANSOFCOM guys?
over the years, I've got to work with lots of the soft community,
Yeah.
American, Canadian,
Yeah.
a few others. Like I was never a go fast guy, wasn't a pew pew guy, I was a tippy tippy guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, like the second you start touching networks and moving data around, and you have to move it between like unclass, secret, top secret, and you're moving stuff around,
Yeah.
your clients start being everybody, right? Army,
Mm.
Navy, Air Force, SOF, everybody, and
Mm.
all the little purple groups that
Yeah.
don't make the news but are like doing critical work in places.
Yeah. 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 Hmm. That's nice to hear. I have a friend that is IT guy for GTF. He's like the close comms guy with them.
Yeah,
Talk with him, and he's like, "Oh man, like all those technology that you'd never know would exist, like we're doing it." I'm like,
Oh yeah. But and
So,
this thing,
yeah,
soft has never been the problem, right?
yeah,
They have a budget, they're
mhm,
flexible in mindset and like actual operational procedure.
yeah,
They will adapt and get their mission done. Love them.
mhm,
Fantastic attitudes. The Reg Force is the problem child. They don't want to spend, they don't want to take risks, they don't want to do anything.
yeah,
And admittedly, they have very different cultures. SOF doesn't do in-service support. It does not do baseline engineering. They do just-in-time engineering. Their systems don't need to last more than a few months often. And
mhm,
when they do it to last longer, they can just swarm. They have very good people that they can swarm onto a project and make it go.
mhm,
And then again, because their scope and size is so much smaller, that works for them.
yeah,
The Rake Force can't do that. They need baselines. They need training that stays relatively up to date and is consumable by the broader set of people that they need to work on it. Uh, it's they need real in-service support, and that requires an enterprise level effort that builds and maintains that. And that is exactly what fell apart in 2012 when they turned the money off. They're like, no, we're done with this
yeah,
because I guess we'll never use computers again. Oh,
yeah.
wait.
Oh, we did. So coming
Yeah.
back on the conversation we spoke about the CPCSC,
Yeah.
I think we introduced it a little bit as like the federal side, but how could Canadian businesses understand what's that and how they can probably use it on their part?
Okay. I'll preface this with a little blurb on GRC in general. So, like GRC, or Governance, Risk, and Compliance, right, which is the umbrella term for any sort of like putting together a program that controls your systems, your environment, your data, your people, and documenting it so you know where things are and what they're doing. Relatively simple in concept, but it gets complicated and complex as you go.
Hmm,
Uh, the easiest way to look at it is GRC is like food safety, right? If you run a
hmm,
dirty kitchen, you're going to make people sick. If you run a dirty system, you're going to compromise your clients. We understand food safety. That's why the restaurant you go to has health inspections.
hmm,
But the company you may be working with, no one's ever looked at their tech likely, right? Unless you've demanded that they have SOC or ISO or a NIST compliance, likely they maybe have never done anything. They could be completely vulnerable on the back end and they won't tell you and you won't know.
yeah,
It is a dirty, uncontrolled situation. And the big shift right now is realizing that, much like food safety, we can't afford, in general, to let people run dirty systems,
hmm,
right? If the government's giving you data about weapon systems and drones and space stuff, it's just unacceptable to not have done your security work. And that kind of came to a head with the Americans by about 2015. They realized, oh, our stuff keeps getting stolen by the Chinese. We need to do something about this. And by 2017, they had put in the DFARS 7012 clause in all their Department of Defense contracts that basically said you will implement NIST 800-171, that compliance control set,
hmm,
on your systems. And everyone said, yes, okay. And everyone who signed a contract from like 2016, 2017 up agreed to that in their contracts.
hmm,
But there was no mechanism that verified anyone had done what they said they did. And
hmm,
it turns out when you let corporations take money, but they don't have to prove they did the thing for the money, they're going to lie to you
yeah,
constantly.
hmm,
And that has been the history. The last 9 or 10 years has been the Americans getting to grips with the fact that all their corporations have lied to them, including the big guys, Lockheed, Raytheon, uh,
hmm,
big universities like Georgia Tech, and their False Claims Act. Like Department of Justice has been going nuts with their False Claims Act because yeah, there's just all these people lined up who have been lying about their doing their homework essentially.
hmm,
But it's time to pay the piper. So the CMMC program got started up a few years ago, and it initially had it wasn't received super well because again, they're like, hey guys, we're gonna make you start doing the work, and everyone freaked out about cost and complexity and whatnot. And so it got revised and kind of
hmm,
went radio silent for a while because when the Americans do this kind of thing, they do rulemaking, and that rulemaking is very, behind the veil. But now, as of November 10th this year, we now have phase one start for CMC, and it basically means at a minimum, you're going to need level one of the program. There's three levels. Level one is basic FAR 15 controls. And basically, this is the basic minimum standard for protecting the confidentiality of uh, federal contract information, or what the
hmm,
Canadians will call low sensitive information, like low injury sensitive information. And that's the minimum. You're going to have to do at least this much.
hmm.
And it's not that bad. Like it's a minimal thing, but it's still a self-attested thing at that level, level one. Level two for both of the programs, CMMC and CPCSC, level two gets to full implementation of your scope, like of the NIST 800-171 controls. I'm just going to use NIST because it's the same thing um, on your whole system. And then level three means you have to add 172. And that's when you start getting the heavy enterprise security. So if like FCI is going to cost you maybe a couple $1,000s. There's a level one, a few $1,000s, maybe tens of thousands.
Mhm.
Level two is going to cost you tens of thousands to a couple 100,000 to get all done from scratch. And it'll take time, right? The actual implementation of this takes time. Level two from scratch is like 12 to 24 months to get your business good enough to pass that sort of actual inspection. Like a third party is going to show up and run through your documentation and interview your people and make you show them the evidence that you've been doing what you say you're doing, that your policies match your procedures in reality. Level three starts being half mil to like 5 mil, right? It is a heavy lift. So it scales up pretty fiercely, but it's going to start being required for all kinds of things. So if you want anything to do with Golden Dome contracts coming out, whether Canadian American, if we're working together, or anything space-based for either side, you're going to be looking at level three.
Hmm.
And that means we're talking a lot about defense investment right now and all the money that's coming down the pipe for these, to increase the defense industrial base and sovereign Canadian technology and dual use goods and all that fun stuff. But we're not talking about the actual cost that's going to be required to do that. And it'll be an interesting couple of years as people figure out what the impact of that is. It basically means there's a fiscal cliff that a lot of people aren't going to make it past if they're not taking it seriously and arranging the funds to get themselves set up in time. And it'll probably be the single biggest consolidation of the defense industrial base across North America. Right? Both these programs are going to do the same thing. A lot of people are going to sell their businesses or get out of defense work because they don't want to take the cost of actually playing the game to the standard.
Hmm.
So, it's going to be a rough couple of years, but it'll be the biggest shrinkage since the Last Supper in '93, when there's a famous dinner down in the States. All the big defense contractors were there, and they're like, "Hey, look left, look right. Next year, you're not going to be there, right?" And that's how you got the big primes. You got the Raytheons and the Lockheeds and the Boeings because they bought up everybody else who didn't want to play the game, or in that era, essentially turn their business into a business that instead of innovating technology to win wars, they built teams who were really good at winning contracts.
Hmm.
That's what makes the money.
Yeah,
And everyone's kind of happy with that because in peace times,
it's good.
that's
Yeah,
all they
no,
care
that's
about.
good. Not really, but
Yeah.
hmm. And is that mostly for businesses that actually have contracts with DND, or could that be any kind of business? It's only the one that has those information that does need to be passed to other people, or?
There's a to start, it's just the first people affected are the ones that take contracts with DoD or
Okay.
DND, right?
Okay.
So if you have a contract from one of the militaries, you're definitely on the hook to do these things, right? To achieve the standard required by the contract you're on. It could be level one, two, or three.
Hmm.
Then there's flow down requirements. And this is where the gotcha that a lot of people don't see. It's not just that met your requirements. Let's say you're a defense prime and
Hmm.
you've got $1 billion contract and you go, yep, we're going to need level two for all the systems that we're working on this contract with. Cool. And you can implement all that. All your subcontractors, though, also need the
Oh, shit.
same level of certification. So if you've got a
Hmm.
widget guy and it's not so there's
Oh,
carve
okay.
outs like commercial off the shelf products don't count because it's being sold to the public the same as you can order
Yeah.
10,000 of those and they
Yeah.
don't need to protect the data for that widget order when it's a COTS product. But if you're taking a COTS product, but you get the vendor to modify it in a certain way for your military thing, that's not a COTS product anymore.
Hmm.
And they're going to have to get that information in that order. They're going to have to achieve some level of the program too. So if
Hmm.
you're so this starts affecting everything down the chain. If you're
Yeah.
doing a large construction project, all those subcontractors that are showing with vehicles and people on site and digging and doing stuff and get blueprints of like where the water lines are and the power and all that stuff, all
Hmm.
that information is CUI, right? Because you
Hmm.
can use it to do bad things, right? If there's a government building and it's full of all these people doing squirrely things, but I know where the water lines are and I could poison them. Well,
Yeah.
that's sensitive information, right?
Hmm.
So it all starts trickling down. And that's one of the things that will affect the whole industrial base the most is people are not really prepared to, uh, you could be 5 or 6 steps down that chain of subcontractors and you're still going to have to do the same requirements.
Hmm.
Same cost. If level two costs a couple hundred K to get done, it's costing for everybody that needs to do it.
And you don't have that big contract compared to the big guy at the front that just received that $1 billion. You're just receiving 50K or
Right.
something like that to go do asphalt or whatever what you need to do at that building.
And
Hmm.
is that worth it to you for that contract? And there's going to be a lot of people who are going to look at that and go, it's not worth it for me.
Yeah.
That creates an opportunity for some. Some be like, oh, this is a business differentiator. I'm going to be able to stand out and get more work because I went and spent the money to get certified.
Yeah.
And that'll work for the first few folk as long as there's,
Mhm.
demand. But, you know, if, DoD's looking at bidders on a contract and they've got 9 people, they don't really need anymore. It doesn't matter if there's 900 companies. If
Mhm.
the first 9 that are actually qualified because they did the work to get these programs set up are good, they're not looking at the rest of them. They're going to pick the one of the first ones they got, and there you go. Right.
Yeah.
So there is some first mover advantage to get these programs in place for yourself to have your systems up to snuff. Uh, but there's going to be a lot of people who are going to look at it and the math won't make sense to them,
Hmm.
which means a lot of people have talked about pivoting away from defense work,
Yeah.
which will only help them so much because if you're still doing federal contracting, um, within the next, so like right now, the next 1 to 5 years, these programs only affect military contracts and all the subcontractors, right? So the
Mhm.
defense industrial base. 5 years and out, it is probably going to get applied to all federal contracts. Because what we're looking at again is the era of food safety showing up, but for technology. So yeah, okay, the defense guys are getting inspections and we've maintained a standard. What about everybody else that's getting government data,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
mostly the larger government organizations are waiting to for the rollout of these ecosystems to happen and get stood up and to mature a bit, and then they're just going to expand it because the writing is on the wall. We cannot afford to have just unsecure systems being given government data and having
Mhm.
it leak out to whoever wants to, social engineer your people or hack your systems or
Yeah.
what have you.
Hmm. And do we have like a time frame of when that's supposed to come in to actually start those verification and those compliance to come in? Is there like
Yeah.
I think you just said maybe 3 to 5 years for military ones, but is it something that's actually coming in like next year or?
Yeah, so like for CMMC, the American program, it phase one started November 10th. It's now
Oh,
official.
okay.
We're in phase one. It is real now.
Hmm.
Uh, November 10th, 2026, they go to phase two, right? So phase one is just, hey, everybody go get your level one certification. Again, it's 15 controls and it's self-declared success, but like get it in there. Some people, though, especially if you have CTI or controlled technical information, which is automatically like level two, and this is like, parts for military vehicles and things. That's controlled technical information, right? That's going to need level two now. Some people are already getting notices like, hey, you are going to require third-party inspection for this.
Hmm.
And people thought they were going to have more time, that they didn't have to
Yeah.
do it. A lot of people had just been banking on the idea that this would never happen because it was so expensive or people didn't like it. So they thought maybe it'll just go away or
Yeah.
it'll get doged or something.
Hmm.
But no, it turns out like at a fundamental level, we can't afford not to have this level of security and verification. And
Yeah.
so it's happening, right? Like there is no getting around this. It's happening. And
Hmm.
so the Americans have already started and it's going to ramp up every year for the next 3 years, right? You go from like level one, level two, and then eventually level three gets introduced in the contracts. And so people are going to slowly be getting hit with these requirements, especially as they want to renew their contracts, or if
Hmm.
there's option years, suddenly that option year will come with the fact that, well, you'd better be certified at the correct level to get it, right? So if you want the money to keep coming in, you're going to have done the work. The
Hmm.
Canadian side's different. We first announced CPCSC about 2 years ago
Okay.
and then went radio silent. And it was supposed to start December 2024. And then we
Okay.
got there and they released a delay announcement like, oh, actually, sorry, we meant December next year. Okay.
Which is
So we've gone through 2025 PSBC, which seems to have had a very small team kind of working on their own for this whole thing, which we'll get to in a second. But like, they made an announcement in March. Hey, here's our phases. Phase one is in the spring, phase two in the fall, and we're gonna do all these things. And notionally to keep track kind of with the American rollout, so that we were bringing in the same level, like level one self-attestation, and then level two contracts will show up next year, and et cetera, et cetera. Unfortunately, then they immediately went radio silent and missed all their milestones in a very typically CanGov fashion.
Yeah.
Until a couple months ago, when I emailed them directly. Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Do we know what controls we're using for level one right now?
Hmm.
Because that hadn't been released at all. And I got an email back with them, but there's been no official publication of it. And so it's been very difficult to try and explain to people what's happening with CPCSC because it's not real yet.
Yeah.
We haven't actually finished doing any of the programmatics for it.
Mm.
But as of their last announcement, phase one, like the introducing level one of the system as a requirement to take a contract, is going to start in April 2026. That is the last notional date we've gotten out of them that is trying to say, what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But they also, like, they haven't released the self-reporting portal where you could actually show up and enter your score if you've done a self-assessment. That doesn't exist yet, at least publicly. We don't have assessment guides. We don't have scoping guides. There's only like these programs are complex. They're not hard, but they're complex.
Hmm.
And it requires a lot of thought to have gone into things to, this, not that, these details, scope in this way. These items count, these ones don't. It's a
Yeah.
lot of work. And the Americans have done that work. And we are creating a carbon copy of this system. So we can kind of look to the American documentation and use it and get prepared for CPCSC.
I have an idea. Okay.
But we're Canada. We Canadianize everything.
Yeah.
If nothing else, because it needs a official translation, which is one of the
Yeah.
reasons our version of 801.1 ITSP 10.171 took so long to get out, because it was finished and then it had to go off for translation for months.
Yeah.
So it's a whole thing.
Because I did speak with someone in cybersecurity. I think that was like one of my first podcasts, and he was talking to me about how compliances in Canada would be coming in around 2030. So 2030, and how businesses are like have no idea about it. They're just doing their thing, and it's like he was explaining how implementing those systems will take a couple, like 1 or 2 years, and we are 5 years from there. So it's like you kind of need to start adjusting
We
and
are on a
thinking
very
about,
short runway and we are running out
yeah,
of time.
absolutely. So
And,
it's
and
like,
yeah, it's even shorter than that, right?
yeah,
Again, if PSP can make this latest milestone they've announced
mhm,
and put level one in the contracts for April next year,
yeah,
that's it. That's the start of the phase rollout. Like you have to start doing all this.
yeah,
And then every year after, the other levels show up if they don't show up sooner than that because of sensitivity and requirements and the fact that these programs are necessary to keep your sensitive research from walking away and ending up in the hands of Iran or China or Russia, right? Like there's a real effect to not doing this.
yeah,
So I don't think we have till 2030. These programs are coming in now. They're coming in hot,
mm,
but it was absolutely correct, and no one is prepared. No
yeah,
one is ready to do this. And it's not because often it's because they don't want to spend money right away. But the big one is just people seem to have a really hard time getting to grips with the idea that you're going to have to do a lot of really monotonous nerd shit. You're going to have to write things down. You're going to have to make a lot of lists. You're going
yeah,
to have to reference those things to policies that you've written out about what you're going to do. And then you have to do them. But if
hmm,
you don't have all that documentation and then live it, you don't have a controlled environment. You don't have a program where you know where your data is and where it goes at any given step in your business process. And until you get there, until you reach that maturity level, you're not going to pass these inspections. And
hmm.
that means you're not going to win contracts and you may just go out of business.
And let's say compared to the like CMMC that we talked about, what would that kind of look like? It would be like kind of a checkbox, I guess, or a checklist of like what we need to follow, or what would it look like for businesses basically for like on our part?
Yeah, give me a second. I kind of wrote a blurb on this. Um, okay. So basically, you need to achieve, let's say you were making explosives or drone parts or something to go into a product. you're going to need to achieve at least level 2 of this program, right? So you're going to need CPCSC level 2. That means the full implementation of ITSP 10171 on your system scope. That
Hmm.
scope is everything you need to uh, service a contract. From the time you get an email about all the contracts and you win the bid, and then all the information you receive for that contract, and then everything you do with it,
Hmm.
every system that touches, every, you print it out, that the room you have physical data in, right? Because you've made CDs or USB sticks or printed paper. All of that counts, and you have to start tracking it. You have to go through, so you have to scope out what your actual flow is, write it all down. Every room, every building, every part of that compound you're in, uh, right? You're going to have to put up fences. You're going to have to put in locks on the doors. You're going to have cameras in places for monitoring. You're going to have security film on the windows so you can't just see in to look at the screens where all the sensitive data is.
Yeah.
From physical all the way through to your virtual stack, you're going to have to apply the 110 controls to that entire scope.
Hmm.
And that, now, luckily, uh, it's written so the NIST standards are actually really easy to grok once you figure out what's going on.
Hmm.
It's an open book test. They have what's called the assessment guide. So you have your controls, and it's 110 controls. And this should really be one document, but it is currently two.
Mhm.
You go to the 171A document, and the A is the assessment guide, and it walks you through the 320 assessment objectives you need to achieve for this. And it sounds like a lot. It can't be,
Yeah.
but it's an open book test.
Yeah.
Literally, it's like, you know, control one has like 6 assessment objectives. When you can answer this is true for every system, because you apply those assessment objectives to every component in
Mhm.
your system. But once you can say it's all true, you pass. Right?
Mhm.
It's very easy. There's no ambiguity. Once you realize, like, oh, I just need to write everything to my assessment objective level. I've made sure that all my gear is meeting those assessment objectives.
Mhm.
That's it. You just got to do the work. But this is why it takes a long time. People often treat this as a purely IT problem, and it's not an IT problem.
Mhm.
GRC is not an IT function. It's a core business function. From the
Mhm.
CO, HR, real property management, security, everybody has a part to play in the like in this control baseline, right? You're when you onboard people, you authorize them to get onto your system. Well, that's HR, and there has to be a process to like, hey, yeah, and we verified, or we did a background check on this guy, or whatever, or a criminal record check, anything. Like, what is your process? Okay, we followed that. Now Bob can go, it goes to this guy, the approving manager, and he says, yep, okay, you did all the work. I approved Bob to be on the system. He's authorized. Great. Now you can make Bob's account. Whereas like a startup is just like, oh, hey, Bob showed up. Great, make an account quick. Okay, go do stuff.
Yeah.
Right? That's the difference. It's not just, oh, hey, let's do stuff fast because we can. It's,
Mhm.
hey, there's a process, and motivating it means that we have all the right steps in place and they've all been done. So that later, if something bad happens, we can look at it and go, hey, well, we followed our process. We know all this information, right? Or just good daily hygiene. Bob leaves for a better job somewhere. Great. Deactivate Bob's account. Like you have a workflow. Deactivate the account. Make sure all this stuff gets archived. The stuff like, oh, hey, turns out 6 months later, Bob's in jail. And the police are asking us about Bob's activities. Oh, we can go back and look at the logs on what Bob did while Bob was on our systems. Oh, hey, look at all these weird Bitcoin transactions. That shouldn't have happened, right?
Mhm.
Like, and it really shouldn't have happened because one of the controls you apply is you only allow connections to these systems that are part of the work. If
Mhm.
you don't have a reason to be accessing an external service, whether it's a website or a cloud service provider or any number of things, then that should be blocked, right? So a controlled environment like this is a no fun allowed zone. You're not doing fun things. You're not checking the news. You're not checking your Gmail. You're not running a business on the side. Nothing's allowed to happen unless it's part of doing the business work. And that's another big culture shift, right? Where
Yeah.
a lot of companies like they don't control their systems that way, and people can install their own tools, or they can use other like, oh yeah, I use ChatGPT for that, and they're like, all right, cool, just don't put anything sensitive in. That kind of stuff gets blocked once you have a real controlled environment, and it's going to be a culture shift because people are going to suddenly the people implementing it for their business are going to have real pressure as everyone's like, hey, but I just want to do this thing. This used to take me 5 minutes. Why are you making my life harder?
Yeah.
Because it's not about you. It's not
Yeah.
about how good your life is.
Hmm.
It's about the company not getting sued out of existence
Yeah.
because they lost government data and some soldier got killed somewhere.
Yeah. And what do you what could you think happened to a business that doesn't have those compliances? Because the way we speak about it is like I visualize myself as just like if we come back to the construction that we talked about, the CEO of that construction business has
Yeah.
no knowledge at all about IT,
Yeah,
about
which is
even
very common.
compliances. So like
Manufacturing, construction, a lot of businesses where they're really good at their business,
yeah,
but they've never thought about running real IT before because no
or
one's
they
made them.
or they don't even know like that compliance is even coming because like
Yeah,
they don't
completely
care
unaware.
about taking that news and informing themselves about it. So what could happen to like that guy who like has those federal contract that is just doing the job and then you show up or that person show up to that business, oh, I'm looking at your complaint. Is it shut down the contract right away with no
Well, they're
notice?
gonna find out about it way before someone like me would show up,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Because you have to go engage someone to come do
Mm,
this for you. So the first time
mm,
people are gonna hear about it is probably when, like, so on the Canadian side, when PSBC starts making announcements
mm.
and following up on them, but like really poking people, like, hey guys, your next contract will have this clause. Be aware, you're gonna have to be ready.
Okay.
They're gonna get a heads up because a lot of people just don't listen to this kind of news. They don't care, right? They get the construction guy does
Those yeah.
construction, really good at it, and they
Yeah.
don't care about the IT news.
Yeah.
But it means they're going to run into this cliff where something they're not allowed to take a new contract
Yeah.
because they didn't do the work.
Hmm.
And they run the risk, like, especially at level one, they could just lie. Self
Yeah.
attestation is mostly lies,
Hmm.
and no one's going to come check your homework. So, unfortunately, a lot of people are probably going to take a risk, a
Yeah.
really stupid risk, but they're going to take it. And
Yeah.
they're going to say, no, we're totally did, we're good.
Hmm.
And then scramble to either get done or ignore it and wait to get found out and lose a contract or get, you know, unfortunately, on the Canadian side, the mechanisms for enforcement are almost non-existent, right?
Yeah.
The Ottawa bubble, like reference again, like Ottawa's a different culture.
Yeah.
A lot of people just have what they called Phoenix companies, where yeah, they screwed a thing up or they got into a court
Shut
fight
up.
or something, and they just kind of scratched the name off one company. They reincorporated as a new company.
Yeah.
Next week, they're back to bidding on government contracts because nothing about that old company followed them through.
Hmm.
They show up as a new entity and they're doing business again.
Yeah.
And there was just no mechanism to track that. CPCSC at least introduces a mechanism where you still won't get through to get that contract if you haven't done the work that you failed on the first time, right? So you
Yeah.
can't just scratch off the name on the character sheet, turn up as a new guy, and be like, yeah, I'll do it, because you still have to pass that assessment.
Mm.
Um, yeah, a lot of people are going to find out probably too late. And as that news builds, what we're going to see is what happened in the American side. The American side, it's been like that for the last few years.
Yeah.
A lot of people trying to explain this was coming. Hey guys, pay attention. Hey, this is going to happen. And
Mhm.
there was a lot of pushback. There's a lot of people saying it'll never happen. It's expensive, so I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Um, any number of reasons people will rationalize to themselves to not do the obvious thing they need to do,
Hmm.
and they're going to lose their contracts. They're not going to be able to pick up new defense work. They're going to
Yeah.
try and pivot away, but then again, in a couple of years, they're not going to be able to pick up federal contracts.
Yeah.
And it's not just them. It's if you're in the States, like a hospital that does research that's in any way connected to
Mm.
DoD or the federal government, well, those research projects get these requirements. And now you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I was just working on the medical side. Yeah, but now they have these requirements.
Hmm.
And when they get to the federal level, like where the FAR CY program, like where it expands past defense, um, any like HIPAA, like that health information, that's a type of CUI. So that will suddenly fall under this umbrella. And
Hmm.
you're gonna so everybody across this huge swath is gonna have to, across like multiple industries, it's gonna have to start paying attention to this and getting it done. Hopefully, as like the Canadian defense industrial base, we'll be able to look at the American side of things and go, oh, okay, we can see what's going to happen and do the work now to be more proactive and then make announcements and really do some education and target the people that we want to stay in business because we want a healthy, robust defense industrial base. We want to do
Yeah.
cool shit and whiz bang technology and like make shit go.
Yeah.
But we're not going to be able to do it like we've been doing it for the last 20 years. We have all this technical debt that no one's bothered with,
Hmm.
and it's making us sick,
Yeah.
right? It's making our companies unhealthy. They get hacked. Our IP is stolen, right? It's just we cannot keep going that direction.
Hmm. And it's like I always come back to my in my head. I'm like, it just makes sense that you do them because you have so much of those big contract coming in from the federal. But then every time I think about that, you bring back the fact that it's the third party ones that then needs that and
It's
doesn't
the
have that
motive.
money. So it's
Well,
like,
and you could be the biggest prime in the world, but if your
yeah,
entire subcontracting base, all the people that make all the widgets and parts that fit into the systems you build for the government,
yeah,
if none of those people can meet these requirements, you
yeah,
don't have a supply chain.
yeah. Hmm. So I always like, I'm always like, oh, it's just logical, just go make them. But then the guy under as the third party that just makes 100K for the project that doesn't really
Yep.
think about the federal project or doesn't even know maybe, or he's just like, I just go and do this thing. And then it's like, surprise, you have to do this 500K project or you have to do this compliances to
Right.
actually keep working for them. So coming back to your business, how do you position yourself with all that in mind? Or is there something that your business kind of work for that or will bring, or what's the aim with all that
Yeah.
knowledge?
So the first thing I tried this year, which I had very low success with, was doing education.
Yeah.
Like just showing up like, hey guys, because again, to my well, your background as a SIGOP, same as a SIGOP, we learned how to do different things with systems and run around and make it go fast.
Yeah.
To me, a lot of these control sets, because the government uses a larger control set called ITSG 33, which is based off NIST 853, which is like the big control set, like 11 or 1200 controls. NIST 800 is a much smaller control set, which is like a little subset of the big one, with just 110 controls, and it's only focused on confidentiality. Um, so I was used to like this is the first 3 months of any deployment from the Afghan years, right? It's like it, you got a system, draw out your diagrams, scope it out, you know what your policy is supposed to be, do a thing, make sure everything is as it's supposed to be, air gap system, do all this stuff, right? Because it was secret or above. So it's even more controls, but it
Mhm.
was just normal, is what you did.
Yeah.
So I took that and I developed some educational package to be like, all right, clients, all right, here's all the stuff you're going to need to do, and just like try to give them all the knowledge they would need. And what I found was no one wants to do it. No one wants to read. No
Yeah.
one wants to sit down and write things. No one wants to do documentation because it is slow and boring.
Yeah.
And I'd like to get them more credit than that, but no, it really is people just not prepared to do a lot of slow, monotonous work and read a lot.
Yeah.
So it got very bad traction. I try and help people. They wouldn't do any of the pre-work. You show up for a full day event where you're going to walk them through, hopefully wrapping up like they should have started their diagrams and they know their own business processes, right?
Mhm.
Well, no, by the time I got to a full day event where I'd show up on site with the client to try and like help them polish up what they should have worked on already, they hadn't done any of the work. They
Mhm.
hadn't read anything. They hadn't built a diagram.
Mhm.
And the weirdest thing to me, like I just don't understand how you function like this, but these businesses don't understand their own business process.
Mm.
If you ask them, hey, trace out on a whiteboard, and I literally what we did is on the whiteboard, okay, buddy goes and downloads this data. Great. And then what? Oh, well, we stick it here. Okay, and it gets stored in this device. And who has access to that? Everyone. Okay. And who does stuff with it next? And I had to walk them through step by step. And it was like they were looking at it this way for the first time ever. They
Mm.
could not describe to me without prompting and a day of interviews with multiple groups of people in their company,
Mhm.
could not describe their own business process.
Yeah.
Right. Well, if you're at that level where you don't really know what you do with data to go from client gave you money to we gave the client a deliverable and they're happy,
Mhm.
you are in a bad state. Right?
Mhm.
Like, so that has to change. And because people aren't willing to do that work, I am adjusting my the way I'm approaching this. So instead, I am putting together delivery teams where we are going to come in and do scoping and gap analysis for whatever control set you require, and essentially accomplish the first month or two of work, that really boring, monotonous scut work,
Mhm.
like a NASCAR team doing tire changes. And we're just going to get it done in a week. We're going
Mhm.
to walk in. We know exactly what we're targeting for the level you need. We know exactly like rough size. Like we're going to do a recce. We're going to make sure we know the size of their building.
Yeah.
Like, is it 10,000 square feet? Okay, was that mostly shelves or is that like server racks? Oh,
Mhm.
shelves? Great. Yeah, we can probably get this done in 2 days. You have minimal core business functions, a few systems. We can scope that out, build your diagrams, show a gap analysis. Like, hey, here's the things you aren't doing, it's probably mostly not doing,
Mhm.
and get them to the state where they, here's your recommendations, here's all the stuff you would need to do. Let us know if you want to engage for a implementation where you've made your choices. but we're not going to wait on them to make the choices, right? You get paid for that first little bit, and then they can go make business decisions on their own timeline. Whenever they
Mm.
come back to you and they're ready to do something, then you can assign people to that and go get it done. That first chunk where we NASCAR their diagrams into existence and their inventories and the best of breed policies for the basic stuff, and just give them the binder essentially. Like it'll be electronic, but also maybe a binder. Uh, and it's just here you go. Here's what you do now. Here's your new way to live.
Mm.
They either do it and they're going to be successful as they continue to mature that stance, or they don't, and they are going to fail those assessments.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so the new tact is I'm building delivery teams to just get that first chunk of work done.
Yeah.
Uh, and it'll be costly. Like it's going to cost you a few tens of thousands of dollars because we're
Hmm.
bringing 3 to 4 highly trained people to come in and like rock your system.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it'll have much better success than letting people sit around and do nothing and get very anxious about it.
Hmm. So do you have any goals regarding to that new vision for the next 6 to 12 months for your business wise?
Yeah. So right now I'm writing out the physical. I'm approaching much the way I would any deployment, where I'm mentally visualizing the steps, right? You go through, okay, we're gonna show up on site. Okay, we've made sure we know where we're going. If we're traveling, hotels and flights are arranged, like you got all that stuff. Okay. And then we've got people and we're showing up at the client. We're gonna need to talk to their point of contact. Okay, we've got to make sure all these details are captured ahead of time. Okay. And then we're gonna sit down and okay, make sure you got a location to plug in your gear. Okay. And I'm just building the checklists of the things we're gonna do and then train people to do them.
Mm.
That's it. The next big chunk is just build that delivery team, build up the expectations and the workflow, and then train people how to do it in a decent pace,
Mm.
right? As we do that, we'll mature our tooling, right? So, okay, searching for things, you can do it hydraulically, you can do it very slowly, but we want to be fast and we want to be accurate. So we're going to learn how to, okay, what's the perfect script to run on AD that gives us everything we want to know and nothing we don't? Okay, so we're going to build our database, our corporate knowledge of tools and scripts to run, processes to follow that give us exactly what we need to target to get the client in a good state. And as we polish that up, I really hope to make it a nice, slick package. And then
Mm.
I'm going to train more people and build more teams. Because the thing about a mandatory compliance environment, like what's about to happen to us all, is that there is no competition anymore.
Yeah.
Truly, I believe this. There's no competition. There's only capacity
Hmm.
because you have tens of thousands of businesses that have to do this or they lose their business.
Hmm.
There's a lot of work to go around,
Yeah.
but it's going to be a weird accordion
Yeah.
over the next couple of years as people feel that pressure
Hmm.
and essentially build up enough concern to go do it.
Yeah.
Um, but I hope to be able to scale up enough teams that by the time that's really kicking off, that we have the ability to really help people in a
Mm.
fast fashion, right?
Yeah.
Show up 2 days of data capture, and a week or two later they have a deliverable, and it is the magic path ahead. It like tells you everything that they need to know. Here's all their options. Here's your way forward. Go,
Mm.
right? And then if I can get everything to that point where that's running well, then I would love to start documenting more detailed implementation plans, right? Okay, like, hey, if you're a Windows shop and this is what you want to do, here's the best way to do that.
Mm.
If you want to do everything as cheaply as possible, like you just literally have no money, you're a charity organization, some NGO, okay, here's how you do everything for as close to free as possible.
Mm.
But you'll have to compensate like all these free tools and whatever free Linux you're running and all that stuff. Great, but you're going to need people that know how to do that,
Yeah.
right? One of the things we haven't discussed here, but is a critical component of this ecosystem, is the managed service providers
Yeah.
and managed security service providers, so MSPs and MSSPs,
Yeah.
both of which I've seen a few over the year because as I worked with clients, we would talk to their MSPs and their MSSPs, and I was relatively shocked at how ill prepared they are as well.
Hmm.
Because a lot of people doing MSP work, yeah, they run your backups and they create users and they do basically, like people have just been, instead of having anyone that knew what IT was, they hired a company and did IT stuff,
Yeah.
but they're not doing it to the level required by these compliance programs. And a
Hmm.
lot of them aren't prepared to suddenly go from having, oh yeah, we've got 30 clients to, oh, 10 of those now need mandatory inspections at a pretty hefty level of like detail. And we'll have to get prepared for
Yeah.
that. And the MSP systems are in scope. because they're consuming data from the client and they're going to have to participate in those 10 assessments every 3 years. It's a real change to their business model. And so what we're seeing in the state side is a lot of MSPs are just getting out. They're like, nope,
Yeah.
we're no longer going to do that kind of business. I know we told you we were gonna, but often they don't actually get that language in their contracts.
Yeah.
In the new world, with these programs, part of the control set is, do you have contractual language in your contracts with your external service providers, with your MSP and your MSSP, that says they are responsible for these things, for these controls?
Mm.
Because if you don't have that language in, you're not passing your assessment,
Yeah.
because you have to make sure they are legally like on the hook for the thing that they said they're going to do for you. And
Hmm.
that's been another big shift to the industry.
Yeah, them. It's a big change of vision and big things that's gonna happen in less than 5 years for sure.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
silver
them.
lining. Everybody, especially young people right now, looking for jobs, who like, I got told to go into tech, I got a comp sci degree, and now there's no jobs. Boy, is there about to be jobs.
Yeah.
It's
Hmm.
going to take pain. People are going to be reticent, but at some point, they're going to be like, well, this is an existential threat. I'm going to
Yeah.
hire a couple people that know how to do tech now, or
Hmm.
I don't have a business,
Yeah.
and that will create jobs.
Absolutely. Hmm. So before we close down, Andrew, is there anywhere that people can come and talk to you or reach your business?
Yeah, you can hit me up on LinkedIn. Find me there by name or AL Tech Guy, general handle. I don't really run a website because I'm very bespoke consulting. You can check out altechcrew.ca, but it is just a logo and an email. Uh, as I expand things, there'll be more, but mostly I'll probably work under and through other companies, and I'll just promote
Hmm.
them doing the good work. Because as much like I'm very passionate about making this happen,
Yeah.
but this isn't what I want to be doing in 10 years.
Hmm.
And it's not even what I want to be doing in 5 years. To
Yeah.
me, this is a path to get things set up where I can use a lot of my knowledge I already have
Hmm.
in a very focused fashion to get people accelerated and moving.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use whatever I can make from that. And I'm going to build my other projects. The next one after this GRC work will be drones.
Hmm. There you go. Big
We have
projects.
a lot of cool things going on in the drone space.
There you go. So thanks again, Andrew, and thanks for the conversation.
No worries. Good time. Be safe.